You know, we bring you a lot of different experts on this show, from those who are experts in leadership to fitness to finances to mindfulness, even sleep experts as of late, which has been really cool. But sometimes we get someone on this show who has an incredible story. And today we have an individual for you who has quite the story of his own, you know, all the way through his childhood into the military, into leadership training, into speaking with schools and going to college and further education. And we're going to dive into a very interesting individual today, because the reality is, on the way to self-mastery, there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be adversity. And today we're going to talk about how you can remain resilient through those times, because the fact is, we're all going to have those times. So having the strategy and having that mental muscle ready and prepared when those times hit will make you that much more effective during that time. So for those who don't know our guest, today we are going to be talking with Sylvester Jenkins III. And Sylvester is a native of Columbus, Georgia. He's a combat veteran, author, a mental health advocate, and a motivational speaker with 4 tours in Iraq and 1 tour in Afghanistan. He is a retired first sergeant with 21 years of military service in the United States Army. Sylvester has accomplished measurable results under extreme pressure. Yeah, no kidding. While leading teams of multiple personnel in dynamic, fast-paced, and even hostile environments. He is a recipient of multiple awards for outstanding performance and professionalism. Sylvester is a member of the National Society of Leadership and Success, and he graduated from Columbia Southern University, where he received his Bachelor of Science in Organizational Leadership. Sylvester is certified in advanced leadership, executive leadership, and youth mental health first aid. He has self-published the books A Quick Cure to Successful Leadership, Winning the Battle Within, which we're going to talk about today, and The Compass. He's a motivational speaker who has empowered thousands of people by helping them to reach their goals, both personally and professionally. Sylvester, what an honor to have you here, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Brandon. I'm excited to be here, man. Really excited.
I'm excited to talk with you because we talk to a lot of people who are incredible people, by the way, who are experts in their field, right? They're experts in leadership because they worked in a company, and we all face adversity, but it's one thing to face adversity in something like the business world. It is another thing entirely that I can't relate to, but I've spoken to several people who have, to face adversity in a hostile environment, doing several tours in Iraq, a tour in Afghanistan. Like, that is like the highest form of adversity, in my opinion, coming from someone on the outside. So first of all, I want to thank you for 21 years of service in the military. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your support. I appreciate you acknowledging that. Thank you so much.
I want to jump right into some practical stuff, right? I want to ask you, based on your time in the military, because, you know, you've gotten all your degrees in leadership and you've got all your experience in that field. I'm sure a lot of your ambition to move into learning more about leadership came from you just naturally being a leader in the military. Would I be right by saying that?
Absolutely. Very much so.
So what would you say were the top lessons that you took away from your years in the service, whether it was in leadership or anything?
The top lesson that I learned throughout my time spent being in the military was teamwork. It's several qualities, I'll be honest with you. And that was influence, servant leadership, self-leadership, motivation, goal setting, effective communication, and also emotional intelligence.
How does motivation and influence play a part amongst those that you are with overseas? Like, during those trying times, how do those two things, because when people think of motivation, they hear, you can do it, rah, rah, let's get this, right? They think of woo-woo stuff. So how does that play part in what it is you were doing in those hostile environments?
So for the motivation, just to be the influence, just to be that example that people need, because a lot of times what you do reflects on other people. So if I go in there with the wrong attitude, of course, the people that's up under me will continue to have, they will feed off that, and they'll have a bad attitude too. But if I go in there with a motivating mindset, like, hey, let's go out here and make this happen. I said, I know you might not feel like this right now, but guess what? We're gonna get back home. We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna take our behinds, go eat chow, whatever it might be. So, but that influence, like nobody, I think that is one of the most impactful things you can do as a leader is influence. And for me, I did not realize how much influence I had until I got ready to go on my third deployment to Iraq. And it was just dealing with a situation when we was getting ready to board the plane, and we get that last hour to spend with our families before we go. And one of my soldiers introduced me to his family, his wife, his kids, his mother, and his father. And as we're standing there talking, man, he just saying all these great things about me, man. He was just saying like, you know, Sergeant Jenkins is this, Sergeant Jenkins is that, and I'm just like, whoa, man, like I never knew, you know, it just amazed me, man, to see somebody speak so highly of me, right? So his mother pulls me to the side and tells me to please take care of my son and to bring him back home safe. And when she did that, man, I was like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Like she's really putting the trust in me. She really have confidence in me for me in order to bring her child, somebody that she gave birth to, back home safe from this deployment. She really bestowed this obligation upon me. She really told me that, like, hey, you are a leader. I believe in what you're doing because of how much my son speaks about you. I see the influence that you have over my son, and I know he trusts you. So I trust you too. That was so powerful to me, man. I was like, man, I knew then that I had to do whatever it took in order to be the best leader I could for my organization.
Damn, what a story. It's pretty incredible how we have such an influence over the people around us that we might not even realize.
Exactly.
Like not even with our family, but just even with our group of friends and our social circle. And influence is very interesting because I was actually talking to someone yesterday. His name is Frank Agin, and he was just talking about how easily we're able to be influenced even at the unconscious level. And he was talking about if you have a friend that smokes, but you don't smoke, you are by default 60% more likely to pick up a cigarette at some point and smoke. But if you don't smoke and your friend doesn't smoke, but a friend of your friend smokes, you're still 30% more likely to smoke, even if you don't know the friend of your friend, just because your friend has that friend in their life. So our influence runs deep from one person to the next without us even realizing the influence that we're having. And so what you're talking about essentially is leading by example, right?
Absolutely.
Being the example for the people around you. I got to say, it's one thing to talk about leading by example. It's another thing to do it, especially in situations where your life is at risk, in situations where you're trying to move up into in a company ladder, even become a leader of leaders. Like there's situations where it's easier said than done to lead by example and to be the example. So when you're in those difficult situations, where let's say you're in a hostile environment, your life is at risk, how are you still able to be that example for other people? What does that mental work look like in those situations?
Man, so that takes a lot of self-discipline. I'll be honest with you. Self-discipline, what I call self-leadership. I have a routine that I call the 4 canteens of life. And the 4 canteens of life consist of the mental canteen, the physical canteen, the spiritual canteen, and the social canteen. Like we deal with stress on an abundant basis. It's always happening on a daily basis. When you deploy, it's 365 days of just being in a hostile and combat environment. You can lose your life at any time. So I came up with the 4 canteens of life because, you know, in the military, we drank out of canteens. But if we have the right mindset by what we actually view and watch, what we act, because what we feed our brains is just as important as what we feed our bodies. So if we're constantly watching something negative, of course we're going to think negative. But if we watch something positive, we will continue to think positive things. So I just made sure I prevented myself from having those negative conversations, talking negative to people, or saying anything that wasn't, you know, encouraging them or building them up to be better than where they are. So, because your words create worlds, and if
Wow.
I say something to you that could possibly damage you, I'm very spiritual man. I'm a Christian, so when I believe in life and death is in the power of the tongue. I truly believe in that. I truly believe in that. So your the mental canteen, it just makes sure that you provide yourself with positive things. And then the physical aspect. Now, we do physical fitness in the military, but then at the same time, you also need to do your own physical fitness. And I'm not saying that you have to go out here and do this rigorous PT or go out here and just kill yourself going on a 4 or 5 mile run. But at the same time, going for walks, doing aerobics, weightlifting, all these things, because you release that happy chemical called endorphins. And when you
Mm.
release that happy chemical, you also provide oxygen to your brain so you can think better. So that's the physical canteen. And then you have the spiritual. Like I said, I'm a Christian. So, of course, just having a strong faith in God just continue to keep me going forward when there are a lot of things that I do. But for those who are not religious, you got yoga, you got meditation. You can easily do those things in order to help you prepare in that spiritual aspect. And then the social. You got to have somebody that you can always count on. In the military, we call them battle buddies.
Mm.
We call these the people that we're able to count on in order to continue to move forward. Like if I'm having a bad day, hey, battle buddy, I'm dealing with this situation or this circumstance. And then they'll probably lift you up and encourage you and say, hey, I'm with you along this journey. And we possibly have those outside of the military as friends and family. A close one, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, whoever it might be. Reach out to them, connect with them, make sure you stand abreast with them when it comes down to what you got going on in the situation. It's always good to talk to people, especially the ones you trust, in order to have that social canteen. And with
Mhm.
these 4 canteens, like what I said about the stress, the anxiety, the depression, whatever you might be dealing with, it can dehydrate you. But by using these 4 canteens, you'll hydrate yourself to continue to live a strong and good life. So
Wow,
that's
that's super powerful, man.
thank you.
Thanks for going into each of those.
Oh
I
yeah.
love that because I talk about something called the 5 Ps, which is very similar.
Oh, okay.
And if one of those canteens is empty, it drags down the rest,
Right, right, right,
right? If you don't have the social canteen full, then you're not going to have the people around you who can help you to get over those hard times. So
right.
no matter how full the other ones are, they're dripping water because the other one doesn't have any water in it at all.
Absolutely.
I love that. So let me ask you this, because before we talk about who you were, I think it's very important to talk about who you are now. So what does a day-to-day in the life of Sylvester look like today? Who do you help? And how do you help people right now at this point in your life?
Absolutely. So I'm a resilient and adversity speaker in the education industry. I empower, inspire, and impact the next generation to become resilient leaders that triumph and succeed in life by helping them to turn their stress into success and their obstacles into opportunity. Mostly focusing on social emotional learning in schools because we know that students have had a difficult time along their journey, especially like in high school. Once they get to that day and age, it's a whole new environment. They're surrounded by peer pressure, dealing with things like drugs, alcohol, probably even sexual activity. So I just want to be a guiding light to them to help those, especially the ones that lost a sense of hope, in order to just keep moving forward when it comes down to their life and being great.
Wow. Okay, I have some questions on that, but now that we have an idea of who you talk to, because I want to get to that because that's really important. Tell me about, speaking of high school, tell me about who were you during high school?
So that's a good question, man. I wasn't the model student. I would say that much. During my time in high school, I failed multiple times. I failed the 4th grade, the 6th grade, the 8th grade, the 10th grade, 10th grade summer school, and I failed the 12th grade. So I wasn't the phenomenal student that everybody would like think of. At that time, I was also an expiring drug dealer, a gang member, and occasional thief. So I did not come from what I'm saying, great backgrounds. I wasn't doing extravagant things in school. So to be where I am today is a totally different. It's like night and day.
What kept you going after, so failing all those grades, and that word fail is like, what's that mean, right? Because you kept going, so you didn't really fail.
Right.
You kept trying. But a lot of people, and I know several several are successful to this day, who dropped out of school, right? They failed a
Right.
couple times and they're like, this isn't for me, and they left. Why did you, especially with all those other things you were doing on the side, continue going back after each of those?
Well, it was because of my mother. So my senior year in high school, I was taking the test, right? So it was like a huge test this was the deciding factor on if I would graduate on time or not. So in the process of taking this test, my teacher was calling everybody in the hallway to give them their grades. And as she called my name out into the hallway, you know, I started getting like real antsy. My palms started sweating, my heart started racing. I'm standing outside and we're standing there and I'm anticipating what she's about to say. And she told me that I had failed the test, that I didn't have what it takes, and that I wasn't college material. Now, this is coming from my teacher. She told me I wasn't college material. So, like, remember what I said earlier, your words create worlds. Your words create worlds. So, in the process of her saying that, I'm thinking I'm no good. I'm thinking I'm dumb. I'm not college material. So I'm just thinking about that. So along this, also on this day, I had to go home and tell my mom. So one thing about my mom never graduated high school. She dropped out when she was 16 because she was pregnant with my brother. So education was big for her when it came down to her boys, because she was a single parent. So it was like, you know, she was always preaching education, education. You get a good job if you go to school and things like that. So I felt like I had truly let her down as far as reaching that accomplishment. My mom was a powerhouse to me. And so when it came to that situation, I went home and I told my mom, I walked up to her, I said, Mom, and you know, my voice, I had got a lump in my throat, and I put my head down and the tears started rolling down my face. And in the process, she picked my head up. And when she picked my head up, she wiped the tears off my face. And she said, baby, you don't have a lick of book sense, but you have plenty of common sense. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't know whether to take this as a compliment or an insult, because I thought you wanted me to have book sense. But at the same time, in the process of her saying that, she told me, now go get my belt. And she whooped my behind. Like, that was one of the worst. That was one of the worst whippings I ever had, man. But yeah, so after she did that, I was like, man, okay, you know, she's comforting me. But then when she said, go get my belt, I was like, man, I thought I would go get away with something. But overall, man, my mother was one who like truly inspired me to keep moving forward when it came down to my education.
So you had that voice in your head that said, keep going, keep moving, no matter what, because this is what my family wants. These are the values that my
Right.
mom instilled in me, and you graduated.
Right. Absolutely. I graduated
Hell
later
yeah.
on that year in summer school, man. But me thinking that, you know, I was too dumb for college, and just thinking about my childhood and what everybody was saying, man, I didn't think I had what it takes, but I wanted I wanted to get out of that environment of poverty, and I wanted to find my purpose. So I joined the military.
Damn. Okay. So let me ask you first, what were your emotions when you did finally graduate? Yeah, I know a lot of people who, you know, they have a goal for a long time and they reach it and they feel good temporarily, and then
Right.
they keep moving. They don't stop to celebrate the successes. What were the emotions for you once you had that diploma in hand?
The emotions for me, man, was when I seen my mother and she like was smiling from ear to ear. It I had tears of emotion, you know what I'm saying? Tears of happiness. I was excited about the opportunity to really be able to say, hey, I made my mother proud. I graduated high school. I finally did something that she wanted me to do. So it was like tears of happiness, of joy, but it was only for a moment, because after that time frame, I had to figure out what's the next move, because I didn't have no plans. Didn't
You
have,
talk well, and you mentioned purpose, right? So
yeah.
before we talk about you moving into the military, because I definitely want to talk about that decision. What is purpose to you? Like, what is that word? Because a lot of people have different definitions for it.
Oh man, like purpose for me, man, is mostly I think everybody was created to serve in some capacity. So I feel like we all been bestowed a purpose in life. And when I think about this purpose from time to time, man, I think it's something that you were specifically given that nobody else can do. Just, you know, say there's a blueprint in some format or shape, fashion, or form, but only you are required to fulfill this when it comes down to your why. Like, who are you willing to serve, and what capacity or do you have to serve those individuals? So I think that is the meaning of purpose to me. So I know like where I'm at right now and what I'm doing, that is my purpose. I felt as though this is like what God put into me in order to continue to help the next generation, because Just going down my path, you look at my history, you look at my story, you see everything that I went through, the trials and tribulations. It'd just be like, oh yeah, I can relate with him. I know if he can do it, I can do it too. And that's what it's all about, just being better, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Did 18, 19-year-old Sylvester know that definition of purpose? Did you stumble upon it? Like, where did you learn that? Where did you come across that?
No, so I'll be honest with you, man. So I had no clue what I wanted to do when I graduated high school. I had no clue what I wanted to do when I retired from the military. Zero clue. I was gonna go work at Amazon, to be honest with you.
Wow.
I was gonna be an operations manager at Amazon. I already had the job lined up and everything, man. And
This is 20 years ago, huh?
yeah,
Damn.
yeah. So so I was gonna do that, man. But for me, after once I had retired or whatever, the pandemic hit and I walked into that. But when I was a kid, I was like, man, I probably just continue to run the streets. Yeah, continue to run the streets. I graduated high school. I met that mark. I made my mom proud. I did what I was figuring I was supposed to do at that time. But little did I know, man, God had more in store for me.
Yeah. What was that? What was more in store, and how did you come across that next step?
Oh man, like so I joined the military because it got to a point where I needed to change the environment. Just honestly, I was going down the wrong path, hanging with the wrong people, doing the continuous negative things. My mom was like always nagging, like you need to do something with your life. So I felt like that was the next move was to go to the military. But the thing about it is, you know how you have choices of branches to go into in the military.
Yeah.
Right. This is a crazy part for me. So you have choices of branches to go to. You have the Navy, the Army, you have the Marines, you have the Air Force, right? How about I failed the test for the Air Force, I failed the test for the Navy, and I failed the test for the Marines.
Wow.
So, and the only one I passed was the one for the Army. So it was like, well, I know where I'm going to. I know which branch I'm going to. So it was like, man, I'm steady thinking that along this journey that due to, me continuously failing, that I don't have nothing. I'm not smart enough. I don't have nothing but like the physicality of everything. I was a pretty physical dude. I was, try to play sports and things like that, man. But it was just crazy to me how I failed every test for every other branch that I wanted to go into except the Army.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty much how I ended up in there. And then along that path, man, for about the first 3 years in the Army, I was still steady getting into fights. I got in trouble while I was in the military. I was engaged to be married. Once we had got that separation, I had a fiance, and come to find out, she got pregnant by somebody else while I was gone to basic training. Yeah, while I was gone. So it was just like, wow, man, like, is this it? Am I just born to be a failure? And will I continue to go down this path, dealing with these adversities in life? What can I do? So I'm thinking like I just don't have what it takes.
Okay. Now you've kept going through all of this. I mean, you took all those tests, you didn't pass the test. Your girlfriend's, pregnant now with someone else's baby at this point. Like,
Right.
I mean, you had this past programming that you brought in there with you, getting into fights. Like, what was the turning point? Because you rose up in the ranks. I mean, you don't stay in for 21 years without having a turning point and without changing that programming. So when was that turning point for you?
Right. So that turning point was so you remember that deployment that I talked about where the mother had, so that was a turning point for me.
And that was your third deployment.
That was my third deployment. But at the same time, here's a kicker. No one knew that I was going through a divorce during that deployment.
Wow.
No one knew once we had got back, I was dealing with just the transition from the deployment, the divorce, and I had resorted to drugs and alcohol to like try and suppress the pain.
Yeah.
No one knew that I was on the verge of committing suicide when I was going through that. So I had all these things that I was dealing with. And what happened was I had a son, right? I had a son. And at that time, he was barely even one. But I knew, like, if I had took my life, he would have grew up the same way I did.
Mm.
You know, he would have grew up the same way I did without a father. And that was a turning point for me right then and there, because it wasn't about me anymore. So I did a simple thing. It's so simple that anybody can do it. I made a decision. I made a decision. I didn't go to the wizard and ask him for a new brain. I didn't sit there and say, just sit there and just continue to just say, why me? I made a decision. And when I made that decision, I said, I'm going to be the best father. I'm going to be the best soldier. I'm going to be the best person that I can be, not only for, them, but for myself as well. And from there, it just took off. I started like reading books from, highly successful people. I read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
I read that book. Oh man, it changed everything for me. When I read that book, I started reading books from the Dalai Lama. I started reading books from Les Brown, Tony Robbins, and everything, man. My whole mindset shifted. My whole mindset shifted to the point that it started propelling me to be more successful in my career. It started helping me to be more successful as being a father. It started helping me to be more successful as just being an individual and a person.
The one thing about you, man, is like, I think from an outside perspective, you were successful the whole time.
Yeah.
You faced challenges, but you didn't just go back home and live with your mom and be like some others out there who just stop and they give up. And I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this conversation so far, and I've got more to ask you, is you kept going. And I'm trying to think like, okay, well, you failed all these grades, but you graduated. You failed all these tests going into the military, but you passed one and you ran with it. Quite literally for 20 something years. You went on these deployments. You changed, your 1-year-old son at that point. You had your turning point of, you decided in an instant. What was that decision, by the way, that you made in that instant? That
decision was just to be better. That was the decision, to be better. They say whenever you're riding on a plane, whenever the bags come down for oxygen, they said put yours on first before you help anybody put theirs on. So I knew in order to be the best I could be, or for other people, I had to be better for myself. So that's what I did. I put my oxygen mask on, man, and just took off running.
When you're talking to students and even, just individuals in general who are also trying to be better, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who are actively looking to improve. Their life circumstances might not foster that, but they're trying. What books do you recommend to people? Like what's 1 or 2 books that you'd recommend that could practically help every single person out there?
Oh, that's good, man. So I'm gonna say my book, of course, Winning the Battle Within. Okay. Which is now out on Amazon. But also I would say The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Yes, Stephen Covey. That was a phenomenal book, man. It gives you a blueprint from start to finish on how you could, really live your life. Wow. And then, so I think I just followed the steps. All I did was just follow the steps that was in the book. And I think knowledge is power. But I think knowledge is good, but I think applied knowledge is power.
Yes, actually taking it and doing something with it.
Yes.
Dude, I mean, come on, man. There's so many people who are A+ students who they graduate from school, they go to college, they get the degree, summa cum laude or whatever the letters are. You know what I mean? And they're not writing books, man. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you've written three books now, right?
Right. Absolutely.
3 books, but you failed the grades. And it just blows my mind at what is possible if you just have a mission and you're determined to get better. How many years now has it been since you made that decision to be better?
It's going on I think almost 12 years now.
12 years. When you look back at the Sylvester 10 to 12 years ago, are you the same person as you were then?
No, negative. By far, I'm not, man. I wish I can go back in time and talk to that person.
What would you tell him?
I would tell them, man, like, hey, whatever you're doing, man, keep moving forward. I know you feel as though you probably don't have what it takes, but you're phenomenal. You're outstanding. You're unbreakable. You're unstoppable. You can achieve anything you put your mind to. Just keep moving forward. Don't stop.
Wow, what a message, man. What a message. Keep moving forward. Let's talk about today's world. Let's talk about resilience. Let's talk about practicality. A lot of people out there right now who they were laid off, they were let go, they were fired, finding a new job, struggling to find a job. I want to talk about someone you would be talking to, as an adult, but I also want to talk about resilience in the school system today. When you talk to these students who are required to wear masks, and some don't care, but some do, and they're wondering, is this the way that things are always going to be?
Right.
It's creating anxiety, it's creating depression. So let's touch first on the students in the schools, right? When you go in there and they hear, oh, motivational speakers coming in today, what are they going to talk to me about? Because these personal development is a foreign concept to these students, especially those who were in similar situations to where you were over 20 years ago. What is the message that you give to these kids, those who are 13 to 17 years old, when you're in there talking to them about resilience in this new environment today?
So, of course, I try to make it relatable for them in order to have a better understanding that they can, even though they might feel as though they're broken, that broken crayons can still color too. So I try to let them know that you still have purpose, you still have value. And I said there's certain things you can't control. You can't control the environment. You can't control the coronavirus, but you can control your mindset. You can control your attitude and the actions that you take. I tell them, when you get an opportunity to go look in the mirror and meet the person who is responsible for your success, responsible for your goals, your actions, the words you say. This is the person who is responsible for who you become and who you are. Because if you don't keep moving forward, or if you don't find or win the battle within, you'll just fall short to the wayside. And this is how you keep rising. And this is how you'll always continue to move, be successful at everything that you do.
Wow, what a message. I wish that we had someone come in to talk about those things when I was younger. And listen, I grew up with not much adversity, right? I came from a good family. I've got good grades in school, but no one's taught that. Whether they're going through active adversity right now or challenges, no one is taught that you can control you, but you can't control the outside, right? So when you give that talk to them, and you give them an actionable, because it has to be something that they'll do, right? What's the call to action that you leave these students with? Like when you leave, you say, do this first. What is that? What's that advice?
Oh, so for me, I have an acronym called MAX, MAX, right? So I teach them how to go in with the right mindset, and I tell them things that they should do. I tell them how they should hang around winners, right? People, because your circle, look at your circle, because the people that you hang around is like 9 times out of 10 not propelling you to go to that next level, or not motivating you, or don't have the same ambitions as you. So look at your circle, because a wise man once said, if you hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10. You'll be the 10. And then I also talk about having a winning attitude, an attitude of gratitude. I tell them before I wake up in the morning, I'm thankful for 3 things already. I'm thankful for my eyesight. I'm thankful for the mobility that I have. I'm thankful for another day at life. Like, there's so many things you could be thankful for that'll get you in the right mindset or give you a winning spirit prior to you even entering the doors at school.
Wow.
And then I also talk about the execute, which is X, right? Cool. And I don't spell it as EX. I spell it as XEQ, right? Because we eliminate excuses. It's execution over excuses.
Wow, that's cool. Execute with an X.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. So max out. Mindset, attitude, execute. I mean, dude, when I used to wake up to get ready for school, my parents would have the news on, right? So I remember watching the news every day before I get on the bus, the doom and the gloom. I can't imagine what it must be like having the news on now in today's world, because it wasn't about doom and gloom back then. It was about, just whatever else the news was talking about. It's a different world now with the media.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. Now, I want to ask you about your transition from the military to professional speaking, because we have a lot of people listening who are entrepreneurs, who are working on becoming entrepreneurs, business owners. That must have held its own challenges for you. What were the main challenges you faced? And I guess really, I'll just ask you the blanket question of how did you make the transition from 21 years in the military, now you're going and you're a professional speaker. What did that look like for you?
It was a whole new world just due to the environment that I transitioned from as far as the military. You know, in the military, we hard, stern, more disciplined type or whatever it might be. But making that transition, like, I will be honest with you, like when the pandemic hit and the world shut down, it was kind of like, oh, snap, what am I going to do now? It was like, it was difficult to get jobs. Just I felt like once I transitioned, I can walk right into a job. I ain't gonna lie. I felt like with my background and everything else that I had, I felt like I would be able to walk just right into a job. And my mindset was on that. But then I thought about like, hey, I just spent 21 years in the military, and the people that means the most to me, which are my family, they need my time just as much because I didn't have that opportunity with them. But as far as jumping into the realm of speaking, it was a whole new world for me due to the fact that one, I did not know I really truly had a message. Two, I did not know how to get my foot in the door of speaking. And three, I didn't know the first thing about like running that type of a business or anything like that. So I always advise everybody that I talk to find a mentor, somebody who's been on the same path that you're trying to go through. And my mentor or my coach is Jeremy Anderson. I don't know if you heard of him, but he's he's the top youth motivational speaker out right now. So yeah, so I reached out to him, started doing his program, and it really prepared me to go into the door, form my story, tell me about the business and everything else. So yeah, so that was pretty much if anybody is out there trying to get their foot in the door as far as being an entrepreneur at any level, there's somebody out there that has already did it before you and been successful behind it. If I could suggest anything to you, find you a mentor. Find you a mentor.
That's great advice for anybody, brother.
Right.
Wow. How long have you been speaking now?
So it's been since 2019, almost 3 years. Yeah.
Were you always, because you're well spoken, have you always, like, even when you were in the service, were you always this well spoken, or did you craft this in that time frame?
I crafted this in that time frame.
Wow. Now, I think I just want to touch on this. It's not really the name of the episode, but I think it's important. A lot of people who are listening they're leaders in businesses. A lot of people, like, you're doing a job that is the top fear of everybody in the world. Like, public speaking is more feared than death. It's literally the number one fear. Number two is death. It blows my mind. How did you craft and hone this skill in the past 2.5 years? Because I've met a lot of people who've been in Toastmasters for 2.5 years even, and they don't speak as eloquently as you. So how did you do that yourself?
So I jumped off the deep end without a life jacket, man. That's what I did, man. Like repetition. Of course, repetition and then watching other people do it. It's just like football players when they study film. I watch, like Inky Johnson, Eric Thomas, Les Brown, who else? Bob Proctor, Jim Rohn. I watch all these guys, Zig Ziglar. I watch all these guys like I'm studying film. And just to watch them, I pick one of them a week and I just sit there and I watch it. And then I go through the motions of like practicing like my speech or practicing something that I'm going to say in order to like help somebody and inspire them just right there on the spot, like in a 1-minute drill. Like I have my wife time me and then we'll just go through it, just boom, And if I mess up or have any hiccups, of course she's going to let me know. Of course she's going to let me know. So that's pretty much what I do, man. And then just making sure that I'm around the same people, like-minded people, man. Like I said earlier, I tell kids all the time to hang with winners. And the group that I hang out with, the mastermind that I'm in, I hang around people who are in the same industry and they can tell me what I need to work on. I'll pitch in front of them and they'll tell me, hey, why don't you add this? Or why don't you do that? They're looking out for my better interest, man. Or they provide suggestions or even resources in order to be able to talk to other schools and things like that.
Wow. A couple things there that are so powerful, just so they don't pass through people's ears, is the community of winners. Like I'm part of several different communities too, with people where they tell me what I need to work on, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much for the advice, and I go and I execute on that.
Right.
Right? I don't just say, oh, thanks for that, and not do anything. I try it, I see if it works, I see the result, and if it does, I keep doing it. I
Right.
think it's really important too for those listening, the whole model thing, right? The whole finding a mentor and really just compressing their decades of knowledge into literally weeks or even months of time, where you're able to get where they were. It took them 10 years. It took you 2 months. Like the where you've gotten in the past 2 years of speaking is incredible, because I remember when I first started too, one of my biggest inspirations, we followed the same people, by the way. Everyone you mentioned, I followed all those individuals. I've seen Eric Thomas live, absolutely inspiring. I've seen Tony Robbins live.
Right.
Incredible. But I remember I used to literally pull up videos of Tony Robbins specifically because I really meshed with him well. Like he was like the guy for me. And I would pull up videos of him even from back in the day when he really, really tried harder to engage a room. And I would mute the video. And I would literally set up my laptop in my kitchen in my old apartment. And I would literally just copy and model his expressions as he spoke. And if he did this, I did this, right? And I would move the way he moved, because emotion comes from motion, right? It comes from your physicality. It's impossible not to be impactful if your body language is not impactful, right? If you want to make an impact, you got to do the same thing with your body. So, and I see the same thing for me, like when you speak, even you're very expressive. You're not like the normal speaker where, arms to the side, nervous. You've got to own it. Right. Yeah. You've got to truly own it, but it takes practice and it takes modeling. So find someone you want to be like, not to copy them and be them, but you got to have a starting point so that you can find your own nuances and what it is you do so that they can truly shine.
Right. Absolutely. Totally agree with you.
So you've written 3 books in 2.5, 3 years?
Yes.
Damn.
Currently working on my 4th one right now.
Wow. Amazing. I got to ask you, what was before the first book?
Right.
Okay. What were the thoughts that you had? What were the thoughts that you had in general? Like when you were writing that first book, did it bring you back to when you weren't the most book smart? Like did your mom's words come back into your head at that point? Like what was your thought process at that point?
Initially, I didn't think it didn't start out as a book in general. It was me just journaling. Along the path I had of transitioning from the military, I had seek behavioral health because I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression. So just going along that path, it was suggested that I journal. So I was just pretty much writing my story, where I started from, my background, and everything else. But in that, I seen like hidden gems that can help me, that helped me along my journey as far as being a leader in the military. That was my first book. So in the process, I was like, man, I let my wife read it because she's like my accountability partner. So I let my wife read it. And in the process of her reading it, she said, hey, you should do a book. And so I was like, I said, I'm from the hood. You know what I'm saying? We don't write books where I'm from. I was like, man, I don't have the imposter syndrome set in. So I was like, man, I can't do that. But lo and behold, I said, man, you know what? I'm going to take her advice and just see what I could do. And so I just did exactly that. And I self-published that book. I self-published all my books, to be honest with you.
Damn.
Yeah. So just that's what when I seen that book take off and it became an Amazon bestseller, it just, encouraged me to do another one. I was like, oh man, I'm going to do another one. It was like, man, what you going to talk about? And I was like, I'm going to talk about what I did. And I said that would win the battle within. So,
and that's your newest book.
That's my second book. Winning the Battle Within is my second book. I just dropped the book on the 14th of August called The Compass. But
wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So winning the battle within is not all wars ain't on the battlefield. Majority of the enemies that we face will be our enemy in our minds. So when it came to writing Winning the Battle Within, you can't win the war on the world if you can't win the war on your mind. So that was really what propelled me in order to write this book. But I wanted to focus on something that I felt was a secret ingredient to winning the war on your mind. And that was resilience, because resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity. So if you can't implement or come through those battles successfully, I'm going to teach you, or I'm going to give you a guide in order to help you win the battle within.
You're definitely an expert in resilience, my friend. I gotta ask you, because I'm very much into like the self-talk and those things. When you fall and when
Yes.
you get back up, like you have so many times, is there a certain move you have that you do to get back to that place of moving forward? Is there a certain sentence you say to yourself? Like when you go back and think about when you've fallen, but then you get back up,
Right.
what do you say to yourself or do physically in order to get back up?
I tell myself the price of discipline is less than the pain of regret. That's what I tell myself every time. The price of discipline is less than the pain of regret. I know I don't want to be one of those guys that sit around wishing I could have did this or wishing I could have did that. I mean, it's just like you have a life to live. And a lot of people are out here just surviving instead of living life. And I said I never wanted to just live life, especially after my mother passed away. And I was like, man, I got to be disciplined behind the things that I do, because I think having that self-discipline can lead you into other directions that you might find yourself in. Because I have a daughter, and I go to the gym or I eat healthy all because I want to walk her down the aisle someday. I want to give her away. I don't want to be, she's only 3 years old right now, but I still want to be here to be able to do that. When she come to me and say, Dad, I got this guy that I'm seeing and we're thinking about getting married. Of course, I'm going to be like flabbergasted, but then at the same time, I want to be able to say, of course, baby, I need to meet this guy, and then help her along that journey of becoming a wife. When it came down to writing my books, I wanted to leave a legacy for my children. You know, I got to have some type of discipline in order to be able to do these things. So the price of discipline is less than the pain of regret. This is one of the keys to success in life. The people that are successful in life, they aren't the smartest. They ain't like the richest or anything like that. All that came over time. But they were the most disciplined. They had resilience. And then also they was consistent behind what they were doing. So I just feel like that's what I continue to tell myself. When I fall, I got to look back at it and I'll be like, okay, we went through this situation. What could we have done better? What could we have did in order to prevent this from happening in the future? And then just say the price of discipline is less than the pain of regret. Because if I don't take the opportunity to do this, look at what you're leaving behind. Look at what you just gave up on. Look at all the things that you might experience behind, failing, because you're going to feel somewhere on the inside. Not only that, but you got people that are looking up to you, people that are expecting you to show up and show out every time that you come. And if you're not doing that, you're just letting them down too. So I believe in just the price of discipline.
I do too, and I love that quote. And by the time you're walking her down the aisle, I can't wait to see who you've become at the same time, brother.
Oh yeah, saying
very excited for that. So, Winning the Battle Within, where can we find your book, and what's your website where we can follow you moving forward?
So you can go on my website at sylvesterjenkins.com, and you can also find my books on Amazon, Kindle, and also on Audible.
Awesome. The links are going to be in the description, everyone. Go check out Winning the Battle Within on Amazon. Go check out Sylvester's site at sylvesterjenkins.com. Links in the description. Sylvester, my final question for you is, what's the positive impact that you want to make on the world during this chapter of your life?
Oh, wow. So I want to impact, empower, and inspire 1 million people to reach their level of professionalism and their level of personal goals. I want to sit there and be able to look back and say, hey, this person was successful along his journey, and not look at it and try to reap anything in the end. I just want to help others, man, just be great, man, because I know they are great. That's the only thing about it. I just want to help them be resilient leaders, because everybody is a leader at some capacity, and resilience will take you to that next level.
Hell yeah. Beautiful message, brother. And I know you'll get there, and I know that you'll get there sooner than you even expect to get there. So thank you for coming on this show, sharing your story, everything that you've gone through, how you've bounced back, and what you continue to do moving forward. I appreciate you. Thank you, Sylvester.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it.
Another great conversation with Sylvester Jenkins III. Guys, the quote that he mentioned at the end is just so true. The price of discipline is less than the pain of regret. So no matter what it is you're doing that's worthwhile, you're going to face challenges. You're going to face obstacles. It's about continuing forward. Sylvester faced challenges in school. He failed grade after grade after grade. He still graduated. He failed test after test when it came to the military. He still went into the military, went in there strong for over 20 years. Now he's come out and he's a professional speaker, inspiring youth, inspiring everybody, because those listening to this, we're not youth, but we can learn from this story and from all of his experiences. So his second book, Winning the Battle Within, you can find on Amazon. He's working on a new book right now. So when that comes out, you're going to want to see that too. So to follow Sylvester, go to sylvesterjenkins.com and you'll find him there. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. The number one way that you can support this Be Better broadcast is to share this show with just one person who can benefit. Share this with one person who needs to hear the story about how to remain resilient amidst adversity, because adversity is inevitable. But again, the price of discipline is less than the pain of regret. Whatever you're going after, keep moving forward. Thanks so much for watching. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.